It's already off. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to Wednesday night's Heavy Metallurgy Album Club with my esteemed co-hosts, Alan and Jim. Jim is from the record label Iowa's Recordings. Go check out, I didn't put a link in the description because my head's in my ass today. But go look up Iowa's Recordings, some cool tapes and stuff for sale. And Alan, of course, is the supreme overlord of Let's Talk Metal, and he is the co-supreme overlord of Heavy Metallurgy. And we're back with another Wednesday. We've been enjoying the hell out of giving you these little book clubs, as we like to call them. We got our little tea and fancy sandwiches already, and we're going to go on and on about tonight's focus, which is Testament's 2008 album, The Formation of Damnation. But before we get into that, how are you gentlemen doing this evening?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a busy week. It's a hot week. Folks in the chat are already commenting on, yes, everything from pole to pole seems to be melting down at this point.
Yep.
But, I got a frosty beer mug here, so can't complain too much. Not for the next 60 minutes anyway.
I got some warm hipster tears, but they will do work. How about you, Jim? What's going on in Florida? Is it hotter than balls there? It's been miserable here.
Yeah, but it's been raining to kind of keep it easier. And my beverage decidedly less metal than you guys is. It's peach juice.
Oh, you're gonna live forever with a perfectly healthy liver. Yep.
Your pee will smell like strawberry shortcake.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the doll, not the dessert. I'm not sure if that's weird or not, but I'm going to roll with it anyway.
Right. Well, I guess to get started here, there's a story behind why this is so late coming on, everybody, and whatever, but I don't have a big history thing planned other than the band formed in 1993 as Legacy, and they've gone on forever. They got a bunch of albums, but we're talking about their 2008 Formation of Damnation. In 2005, Testament decided that they were going to do a little European tour with the original members. Mm-hmm. And they did that for a little bit, and that original member stuck. And they ended up doing this album minus Louis Clemente. Paul Bostoff took over the drum duties on this album, but essentially at its core, it's the same lineup that was on the Legacy, the ever eternal, awesome debut from this band. And obviously they've gone on to great successes. They've put out their last couple albums have been a huge success for them. They've had Steve DeGorgio in the band, Gene Hogland, Hogland's left the band to pursue other projects. DeGorgio, I think he's still with them. I'm not entirely certain on that, but
some of them are kind of in and out a little bit. Testament's had a little bit of they always have excellent musicians, but the guys kind of come and go a little bit.
You know what? He might have been Christopher. He did have kind of the same. He had like a nasal thing, kind of like what Blitz from Overkill kind of had some of that action happening too, but Progressive Treatment took care of it, and I don't hear much about it anymore.
That was in that mid 2000s range. I don't know the exact years, but yeah, because around like the First Strike is Deadly time, which was the one before this,
right? But here we are. You want to lead the charge on these, Alan, since I'm not prepared?
Yeah, we can do that. No problem. Just hamming it up with folks in the chat as always. Thanks to folks for tuning in this Wednesday night. So yeah, let's just kind of go through some of the basic stuff. And Jim, let's start with you. What's your history with the band Testament? When did you get into them, and what do you think of them in general before we dive deep on this album?
Definitely start at the beginning. I got Legacy right when it came out in '87. I mean, there was a lot of hype even leading up to its release. These guys were kind of like, the second wave of the Bay Area bands, and I think the Legacy lives up to that hype. I mean, it is an awesome record. I still listen to it to this day.
Yeah,
I mean, Over the Wall, First Strike is Deadly. I mean, there's so many great songs on that.
Curse of the Legions of Death.
Yeah, provoke the dead. I mean, so yeah, I mean, I absolutely fell in love with the band right away. You know, and even though, like, you know, that's always going to stand the tallest for me, you know, their subsequent albums were great as well. You know, The New Order, you know, Into the Pit, you know, Trial by Fire, you know, and of course, you know, we go on to, you know, Souls of Black, Practice What You Preach. All those albums are really, really great. You know, I got, you know, less into them in the 90s. I just kind of, I don't know. I was more into getting into death metal at that point. So, you know, thrash was kind of, you know, I was losing interest in it. But, you know, I picked up on Low and stuff like that. And so, you know, this, other than actually seeing them with Marty in Traverse City,
which is insane. If anybody doesn't know this area, the fact that Testament came to Traverse City and Death Angel and Anthrax has been here, it's fucking weird. You know, my 13-year-old self, 14-year-old self would never in a million years believe that would ever happen, but it did. It was amazing.
Yeah. Traverse City's inside city limits population is only 15,000 people. So that was pretty amazing that those guys came there. I'm not sure why, but it was great. It was great to see them and you know, oh my God, I almost said a Testament. Oh my God. Well, might as well just, you know, no pun intended.
Puns are encouraged here, by the way, and laughed at.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, they sounded amazing. You know, Chuck Billy was amazing. You know, Alex is an absolute shredder. You know, I'm a huge, even though I typically, you know, aren't super into the shreddy guys, I love Alex's playing. I think there's tons of feel in it. His phrasing's always perfect. I even went to see him in Trans-Siberian Orchestra playing Christmas songs, like rocking out with the female headbanging violin blare, and I was like, "Go, Alex!" I think I was the only one there who knew he was, but I didn't care. I was standing up,
headbanging to the violin parts.
Yeah, everybody else was seated in their seats, you know. But you know, I had to show the Testament love. But no, so that was a very long answer to your question, but there you go.
All right. So, Marty, what's your history with Testament, the band?
Well, that was all happening when, you know, I was young and transitioning off traditional metal. And I think I saw the Over the Wall video, and I was very much into Metallica and Anthrax, of course, and Slayer. And I saw that Over the Wall video and went, holy shit. I mean, what a great video. What a great song. And of course, Camelot Music had 5 or 6 copies of that tape, because it was an Atlantic Records release. I mean, your debut album comes out on Atlantic. That's one of those bands. Testament were one of those bands where the majors got it right. You know, they had a big hype off of the Legacy demo when they were the Legacy. Label swooped in, scooped them up, and they got a good band out of the deal. And to this day, it's a band that they're still putting out high quality stuff. And even the stuff that they put out that I didn't really love, it's still really good. It's just really good. They've never done, you know, they had dalliances with a little more death metal feel on like Low and The Gathering and stuff like that leading up to this album. But there was no, you know, Lulu or Load or Reload or John Bush era Anthrax or, you know, Slayer messing with new metal. I mean, they're one of the or even Megadeth messing with Risk. You know, all these bands in the big four had their moments where they kind of lost their minds a little bit, you know, but still they had a solid enough fan base where it didn't really matter too much. But Testament never really had that stutter step, and it's to be applauded, I think. So yeah, for me, it was Over the Wall and man, the Legacy, the New Order, Practice What You Preach. I spun those tapes until they were just completely fucked. I mean, they're great stuff.
Very cool. Yeah. My history with them, you know, I'm just a few years younger than you guys, so I wasn't there for the Legacy. But let's see, I got into them when Souls of Black had just come out. And actually bought the tape at Walmart of all places. So
wow.
This tells you, you know, Testament was a thing. You could go to a Walmart, even in the rural South, and find a Testament tape on the Walmart cassette rack.
Sam Walton would be rolling in his grave.
It probably wouldn't work out that way these days. But yeah, I got Souls of. I was looking for Practice What You Preach, but they didn't have it. They had Souls of Black, so I bought that one. Liked it quite a bit. My cousin had Practice What You Preach, so between the two of us, we had access to both albums. Got to hear them both, and yeah, I got Practice What You Preach pretty quick. Funnily enough, the first two albums were really hard to track down by that point. I guess they had gone out of print or they just weren't on the shelves anymore. Because I remember it took me quite a while to find the New Order, which I loved the two that I had access to. Kept looking for the New Order. Took a long time before I tracked a copy down. And took even longer to find the Legacy. So, yeah, I don't have quite the same connection to those two albums that most Testament fans do, just because it was a prolonged search before I ever got around to them. But, yeah, I kept up with the band moving forward for quite a while. Like most folks, the 90s stuff, some of it got a little wonky. I did see them on the Demonic tour. I never thought that one was quite as bad as...
oh, Rick.
That one sometimes gets, kind of slagged, but I didn't mind Demonic as much as most folks did. After Demonic, I lost track of them again just because their albums got a little bit hard to find once more. I heard The Gathering. I got The Gathering on cassette in a tape trade, liked it a lot, but took a long time to find it on CD. It just wasn't being stocked anywhere. And after that, I didn't keep up with thrash really well in the early 2000s. So I saw, when First Strike is Deadly and stuff came out, but I just didn't keep up with them. And that's kind of what led us to this album. In the past few years, I've picked up the more recent Testament albums, but I had never gotten around to checking this one out, which is why I chose it tonight. It kind of, fills in. I'm pretty sure it's the last full studio Testament album I've never heard. And now I have. And now we're here to discuss it. So, without further ado, let's go through some of the basics here. So, and I know some of you, Marty, you've mentioned you've heard this album a bunch in the past. Jim, was this one you were familiar with, or not as much so?
Definitely not. I'd only heard like the title track. So back in the day. So
okay,
it was. I'm glad. That and More Than Meets the Eye, and but it was good to to listen to the whole thing and give it some due attention. So it was awesome.
Okay, so what was your first impression once you got to hear the whole album this week? What was your you played it once and you thought what?
Consistency. I mean, that's the thing about Testament. To Marty's point earlier, they never just took a dump on their legacy. See what I did there?
Nailed them tonight.
Yeah. Even when they were kind of experimenting like with load stuff like that, it always sounded like Testament, and I'm all for a band pushing themselves even heavier, like they did, during that period, instead of going the other direction, in fact, I'd say like some of their post legacy albums before the 90s were actually a little bit more accessible, so then they got to turn that around and go heavier. It was really cool. So this album I think fits right in there. They've never made an offensive album to me, and this album is not offensive. It sounds just like Testament, except with a much better drummer than what they started with. I don't think Boss Staff can keep up with Hoagland, but he can definitely keep up with the first guy, which I
he could keep up with Lombardo, Dave Lombardo. Holding for Slayer.
Yeah.
And now Dave Lombardo took over for Hoagland in Testament, so it's kind of a strange web they all weave,
Yeah, it is. But in my opinion, Hoagland can still smoke them both. I've seen him live with Death and strapping on Glad, and the dude's it's amazing. But having said that, and Paul's drumming is one of my favorite things about the record, because he may not be he's not a blast beat guy, but his fills are amazing, and his feet are amazing, his timing as well, and he makes good choices. And I think that with Eric Peterson's riffing style, he makes this album that much more heavier with everything that he brings to the table. And because other than that, there was nothing that I felt like was pushing new ground. Like, it just sounded, it's another good Testament album. But what made it special for me was like the interesting choices that he made as a drummer, which pushed the riffs to another level. And then of course Alex is playing. That's one thing if you can kind of turn off the rest of what's going on and focus on his leads, like he's always breaking new ground and doing interesting things, but somehow still making it sound metal. And I don't know how he does that. He's just a god on guitar. But yeah,
good deal. Yep. So now, Marty, I know you did hear this one quite a bit back in the day. Do you remember what your first impression of the album was when it came out and you first heard it?
It was, yeah, I do. And I don't own this album. I had it before I quit downloading. I downloaded it back in the day when it came out and put it on my iPod. So at work, my old job, I listened to it a lot. I was, I liked Low. I liked Demonic. I didn't want to hear the death metal influence in Testament. I didn't hate it. It just didn't seem right to me because of the Bay Area bands. They had they always maintained their own sound, and, messing with it and making it heavier than that just felt like, a band that didn't need to fuck with the recipe to maintain relevant and modern when they didn't really need to. But I remember being very much impressed with it, and I haven't listened to it in a long time, and putting it on, this week, it kind of blew me away again. Like, this is a great album, and I would say my first impression would be this would have been a great follow-up to the Legacy. I think it's got the same vibe. It's got that aggression. Yeah, Chuck, he brings down into some of the lower growls a couple times on the album, but he really focuses again on those really melodic, sharp choruses that stick with you. Those vocal melodies that he does. It's just really strong, and it just really, really drives the feel of these songs home. And it sounds like, Testament again. It sounds like the way they should have been, traveling all these years. And like I said, to me, if it came between that and the New Order, it would have been fine. Perfect. It sounds like the classic era, and it is the original lineup from that classic era minus Louis. So, and Bostoff, he just fucking rages on this record. Great fills, and the production, we'll get into the production later, but yeah, a thumbs up, man. Great album. And it was, thank you for reminding me about it and that I need to pick it up. I don't even own the album after this, Roots of Dark Earth or whatever. I've never even heard that record. So
Dark Roots of Earth. Yep.
Dark Roots of, that's got the main guys in it again, the original lineup again before Christensen left. When they played Traverse City, Christensen was still in the band. It might have been during this era. It might have been the Roots of Dark Earth album. Do you remember what tour they were on for? No, because they had Hoagland. It was Hoagland playing drums. So it was still Christensen on bass, but he looked really super, like, unhealthily skinny, I thought. He didn't look healthy. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, it was great to hear the band back together and writing some amazing, amazing stuff. Some stuff that ranks right up there with their classic era, I believe. Anyway, okay. What'd you think, Alan?
This week was the first time I had heard it, and my immediate reaction was pretty similar to Jim's. It was like, well, that is another very solid Testament album, no doubt about it. It sounded, like you said, Marty, a lot like, it owes a lot to sort of the classic Testament. I hear, parts of, Practice What You Preach, Souls of Black era material in there for sure. Everything works very well, and we've already hinted at it, and we'll touch on it some more later, but it's very consistent. Testament's a very consistent band. When you, for the most part, 9 out of 10 times when you buy a Testament album, you know exactly what you're going to get, and they do it very well. I heard someone describe Testament a while back, and Marty, it may have been you. I'm actually not sure where I heard this, but someone just described Testament very simply as comfort food. If you just want to hear, good, solid 80s style thrash metal, you go to Testament. Jim mentioned, these other bands, they've been in and out of the style and, have gone through more sound changes. And Testament has done about as little tinkering with the formula as any of the bands have. So, yes, you absolutely know what you're going to get with Testament, and there's nothing wrong with that. We're going to circle back to that a little bit later about sort of, Testament's place in the thrash metal hierarchy. But let's talk about this album a little bit more before we
before you do that.
Sure.
The comfort food thing for sure, and I can put on those first 3 Testament albums today, and it transforms me back to my childhood bedroom. I remember who I was and what I was getting into, and the feeling of hearing these new albums and just being so completely enamored and blown away by them, and just how times were so much simpler. And then it is replaced by how many years have passed. and then that whole like, oh shit, sinks in. But anyway, I just wanted to add that, it's, you listen to those old albums and it's like instant teleportation back to happier, easier times,
Yep. I would agree. Absolutely. All right. So diving into this one a bit deeper, Jim, as you played it some more over this past week, what kind of things started to stand out to you, both good and bad, about, production, performances, what things, what are sort of, the big pros and cons here for you as you got to know the album?
Definitely, kind of amazed that like Chuck Billy's voice has stayed so strong after all these years. Like he still has that power, that really unique sound that's like baritone but high at the same time. Like there's something about Chuck's voice that's really always been hard for me to pin down, but he always enunciates clearly. He always comes up with catchy choruses, but yet, stays, clear of like that cheesy line. Sometimes he can walk right up to it with like, chorus, like vocal rhythms that sound very, very familiar, but he always backs up and keeps it original and keeps it metal. And, I mean, nobody does it better in a thrash realm, than him for that kind of, catchy, but still cool, and still heavy feeling. And just listening to it just all the way through, I just kind of stand in awe that this guy's been doing this now for 35 years, and it still sounds the way it does. I already mentioned Paul's drumming, just amazing throughout. I think it really added an energy to them. I think that getting rid of Clemente years ago, for he quit or whatever the hell happened, I mean, everybody that's like succeeded him has been like top notch, completely A1 drummers, like Marty mentioned, Lombardo, Hoagland, and Boss Staff. These are all amazing players. And what's cool about Peterson's riffs here is like, decidedly Testament, but he does a little bit more interesting things, but he stays in his zone. He stays in his range. And, that could be a good thing or a bad thing. But for me, I guess it's kind of a good thing, because so many bands of their scene, like, disappointed me to such great lengths. It's almost, I'd call them like the Motorhead of that scene for their consistency's sake, and the level that they've kind of attained. Yeah, they may not have sold as many albums as, they sold plenty, but they didn't sell nearly as many as, maybe the Megadeths and Metallicas, but, they've got their clout and, their integrity intact, and to this day. And, when you go to your grave and you're thinking about your fan base or whatever, maybe your money makes you feel better, but I think these guys can go to bed with their, go to their deathbed with their battle vests on, and know that, that we all, anyone in the metal room, gives them major props, and of course, like you talk about performances, Skolnick always, I don't think there's any player of that like kind of neo-classical shreddy type that has as much feel and originality to me. I can listen to him shred all day long. I don't know what it is, but something, a lot of times I hear that stuff and it's super wanky to me, but it's just not when Alex does it. I'm always curious, and, ever since like, like that run he does at the beginning of Trial by Fire, like I know that solo in my head, I can't play it in my head, I know it, every little line, because it's so, for me, I never heard anything like it, and it just goes from there to a really heavy badass riff. But that kind of like interplay between the rhythm and the lead is throughout the album, and I think is kind of really the backbone of the record. So top-notch performances. These guys are just amazing at what they do. Their chops have not diminished in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm. Yep, all good points. So Marty, what getting deeper into the album past first impression, what things stand out to you, good, or if there was anything that was not so good? What are your selling points, pro and con here?
There's no songs on here that I disliked. And it's one thing, the last few Testament records, they've been long. This album, when it ended, I wanted more. I wish there was another song or two on it. I think the takeaway for me is, of the big four, I think Testament is kind of lumped into the big five or whatever, or the big eight. Eric Peterson is kind of an unsung riff writer, a hero riff writer in this group of dudes. I mean, everybody talks, Gary Holt, Savage riffing, and Hanneman and Mustaine, of course, and Hetfield, and Scott Ian. I mean, all these guys are great riff writers, but Eric Peterson, he's always been an exceptional riff writer. He knows what US thrash is. His overall playing style embodies that spirit, but he's got a lot of other little things he throws in there, coloring, and it just takes the riffs in really cool places that aren't, relying on that standard E chug or whatever. It's just very melodious and excellent. And then, the icing on top is Skolnick's solos. Like, Jim stated that he's a jazz guy, and they say, some of the best players, it's not the notes you play, it's what you don't play. And you listen to his solos and he could go crazy wanky, and there's elements of that, but it's never not meaningful. I never listen to a Skolnick solo and go, whoa, he needs a wet nap after that one. He's just really in the pocket and, playing all the right notes to really empower the riff he's soaring above. And I think that is really key. And of course, Chuck Billy's vocals, he sounds like a teenager on this record. It's great. And, the fact that he's throwing in some of those lows too, to add even a further dynamic, which in my mind isn't necessary, but when he does it, it works. It doesn't sound, it's not overbearing. It's not off-putting. It fits in the songs. Performances, like Jim said, across the board, exceptional performances. I was really vibing on Bostoff's stuff. He's just throwing some crazy fills in there. He's just right on top of the beat the whole time, really pushing these songs in. And even when it's, a laid back part, he's just, in the way the production really empowers the drum kit, it's great. And really, you can hear even Christensen's bass lines. He always had kind of a real mechanical, clangy bass tone. That's here again. That's kind of part of the Testament core sound. And hearing it, not too loud, not too quiet, just right perfect in the mix. It's like all of those elements are locked back in and perfect. And that's why I think, this album could have sat right alongside the Legacy, to be completely honest. And like I said, I listened to it again. I'm just like, God, why haven't I listened to this in so long? It's such a good record. It's great. I listened to it. Some of these you have to kind of force yourself to listen to because you might not be into it. This one, I wanted to keep listening to it because it's so good. But yeah, that were my thoughts on that.
Very cool. Yeah, for me, some things that, as I played it repeatedly, things that started to stand out a lot. You both touched on it, but Chuck sounds fierce on this album. His voice sounds so good. And he really did master, Marty, you made the point, but yeah, he really mastered when to use that deeper, growlier register, but when to, not use it. That was one of the big sticking points for a lot of folks on Demonic, in that era, that he was leaning on that too much. And again, I don't mind those albums as much as some folks, but I agree that, he probably used it too much. On this album, he's not using it that much, but when he does, he uses it to really good effect. It adds some punch. One of the songs, Fear, right towards the end, he kind of drops down into that really, death growly register. And it really adds a lot of, weight to the end of that song. I mean, it's already a pretty good song, and then at the end it just kind of gets a little extra heavy. It's like, damn, that was a really cool way to wrap up that track. Alex sounds great. Alex always sounds great. Y'all are both right. He's a shredder, but he's got a very smooth style of playing, so that it never feels like he's being just wanky or noodling or anything. That it just glides right along, but it's also very precise at the same time. His background in jazz and stuff really shows up, but it doesn't sound like a jazz solo. It still sounds like a shreddy metal solo, but without being overbearing or pompous or anything like that. He's always been super good at that. Peterson, kind of the unsung hero, very core to this band songwriting. I can't think of other things necessarily. Just that it sounds like classic Testament, obviously updated, with a more modern production. Of course, you're not going to get the same sound 20 years after the fact. You don't need to.
Nope.
So everything here clicks quite well. The songwriting style is still very good too. Testament's always been very good at writing songs. Each song has its own little story or its own little theme or topic, and I tend to like bands that do that. It's not that every song is about the same kind of thing or whatnot. It never gets monotonous. They're always going to have a range of different subjects. I'm one of those people that does like to sit down and at least flip through the lyrics once to kind of see what the band is on about. And I always like it when they are touching on different material, and Testament's always been good at that too. So as I kept playing, it's just like everything clicks here. Everything's doing really, really good. All right.
Yes, sir.
So let's see. I guess this is a good time to kind of take a little diversion, because Marty, you hinted at this. There's this construct in American thrash metal known as the Big Four.
Marketing construct.
It's been around forever, and it refers to the the four quote unquote biggest thrash metal bands: Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, and Slayer. But yes, Marty, spoiler alert there. It's really kind of about which four bands had the most sales and marketing and visibility at the time,
and record sales. I think that basically boiled down to record sales,
which really boils down to record sales. Record sales, most video appearances, whatever. But record sales would be a huge part of that. And of course, there's always debate about because metal fans, I think, sometimes we forget that. We tend to think of it more as like it should represent the best four, the most important four, or something like that, which it's more about sales. Approaching it, from that other angle, though, there's always been a lot of, talk and debate about the bands that are left out of that. Testament being, one of the big ones that is kind of, I guess, vying for fifth place. What do you guys think of this? Should Testament have been put into that Big Four construct? And if so, which band should they replace? Assuming that it's more about quality of material. Obviously, in terms of record sales, no, that we can't justify putting Testament ahead of those other four. But if we were doing it in terms of, musicianship, technicality, just who had the best albums, during that era, does Testament leapfrog any of those bands? If so, which ones do they get ahead of in line? Jim, let's start with you.
If we're going on quality, I mean, I think the easiest target and the elephant in the room that should be shot is Metallica.
That's never going to happen. They outsell. They're. I mean, the Black Album is still in the charts.
No. I'm saying excluding sales, though.
Yeah.
If we replace sales with quality, then if the band that they would replace in terms of quality for me would be Metallica, because I still think that everything they've done is garbage since Justice. I mean, there's a couple of songs on that Death Magnetic that were attempts at going back to and I'm glad they tried to go thrashy, and I really wanted to like that album, but
I kind of like that album.
But it sounded to me just like really rich dudes playing thrash metal. Like it seems like the sincerity starts to go out the window when you're one of the wealthiest musicians on the planet, and maybe that's just my cynicism. But if there were, underneath that tier, even considering sales, they'd be like them and Exodus, and there's some definitely thrash bands that did really well but didn't quite do that well. But yeah, to me, it's like, you can't fault bands like AC/DC for putting out the same record over again, or even though there were some serious missteps. I mean, Slayer was more or less pretty much consistent, except for some of that 2000 stuff. But but yeah, I would say that they were more consistent than probably all those bands, because we've got Cryptic Writings from Megadeth, we've got
Risk.
Risk.
Risk was a total fucking turd.
442 album from Anthrax. Like, what was that all about?
Stomp 442.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that one was.
Yeah.
So all those bands had some serious missteps, and most bands do. But again, these guys are going to go down. You can you grab anything, and it's not going to be like offensive. You may have your own personal opinions, like I really like this one a lot more than that one, but you're not going to be like, I'd wipe my ass with that one like you would in some of those other bands. I mean, every single one of the big four have a turd album, at least one. And there's no turds in Testament, man.
No, there really isn't.
Yeah.
I'm not a big Ritual fan, but it's not terrible. Souls of Black, I'm relatively recently new to. That was one I kind of didn't get. I didn't get the Ritual either. I ended up picking those up on tape here in the last couple of years, but they're okay.
Yep. So, Marty, what do you think about Testament's relationship to the Big Four? Should they be bumped in? Are they in the right place on the outside? What do you think?
I think now, especially that Slayer is done, if they're going to redo that whole thing, I mean, I think Death Angel would probably be the ones that get put in because they won a Grammy. So, but I think of the Big Four, the way it is now, some bands recovered better than others. I mean, Metallica, say what you want. I thought Death Magnetic was actually a pretty good album. Too long, but there's some great riffs on it. There's a meme that's going around on Facebook. I'm sure most of you have seen it. There's a picture of just a kid, long hair, cut bangs, denim vest over a leather jacket, and it says Metallica fan. And then underneath is a picture of James Hetfield outside an Armani store holding his wife's Armani bags, wearing designer shorts and flip-flops. And it says, an actual member of Metallica. and that's really kind of, Jim's comment there, that sounds like rich guys trying to rekindle their youth. Megadeth, they fared a bit better. They had a few side steps along the way, but hell, albums like Endgame, that's fucking rips. Even Dystopia, they won a Grammy for that album. And that's a great fucking record. It's really good. It's a good record. It stands up with the early stuff. I mean, Dave is just a shredding, awesome guitar player. And he is very important. I mean, he kind of got Metallica going on their sound, their riff playing. You listen to the Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning, some of the most standout riffs are his. And early Megadeth shit just completely strips down those early Metallica albums in intensity. Rust in Peace, amazing album. Their debut, I mean, Chromie was here, he'd be singing praises too. I love that record. Peace Sells, what a great record. Awesome stuff. Anthrax, they've had a lot of side steps. They struggled through the 90s with the wrong singer. They thought it was the right singer, but John Bush isn't the right singer for Anthrax. They got a little too swept away in the 90s with the Pantera vibe and whatnot. And Slayer, I lost interest after Divine Intervention. I really did. And I never bought another album of theirs. I've heard stuff. I heard the new metal era. It sounds like crap. I didn't like it. I've heard some of the new stuff. It sounds like Slayer. But for me, Testament, a lot of people would say Exodus should be in there because their album, although it came out late, it was written first. I find myself rarely listening to Exodus. I like Exodus. I prefer the Zetro era, to be honest. I love the debut, but I never listened to it. I don't know if I just burned myself out on it. I don't know. It just seems like the other bands that could be the next four, they should have put a tour together, with Overkill, Testament, Exodus, Death Angel. Those 4 should have went out on a tour. Should have been the Bass Strikes Back. It should have said the other 4, the other big 4. They went out and did that, and it's kind of like a fuck you, thumbs up. And a lot of those bands, like Overkill, they put out that I Hear Black album, which is very Alice in Chainsy in spots. That album sucks, man. And Overkill, there was a while, every other album was really great for a long time, and now they're kind of in a groove here lately. Ever since Ironbound, they're pretty solid again. But you want to talk about the Motorhead of thrash? Overkill is the Motorhead of thrash. They keep kind of putting out the same thing. They got that fuck you attitude, and Death Angel is still putting out good shit. Testament, I think of those next 4, I think Testament probably deserves the seat. They probably have more album sales, I would imagine. It's hard to say. It really is hard to say.
The next 4. That's what
the next 4. Yeah, the next 4. But you start holding them up. Their works next to each other. The next 4 have a lot more to be proud of, I think. Sure, Metallica is one of the biggest selling bands. They sell out all their shows. They're still a force. And, their newest album, it was 2 CDs long. They could have trimmed a lot of garbage and made one pretty damn good CD, but they didn't. They had like 5 really good songs mixed in with a bunch of garbage. It was just garbage, tired sounding songs. But the ones that were good, there's a little bit of spirit there. It's just weird how the brain, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going. I'm wandering. What do you think on all this, Alan?
Let's see. If we're talking let's say we're having this discussion, in the early 90s or so, sort of, when the original big thrash movement is winding down, I think the big 4 makes sense in that time frame. Not only again, in record sales aside, yes, sure, they were the 4 biggest sellers. There was also sort of an underlying concept that they were, 4 of the first wave bands on the scene.
Yep.
And that was a thing. And that was actually something, I've heard Skolnick mention, because when he gets asked this question in interviews, he'll often reply, he's like, nope, we deserve to be number 5 or 6 or something, because we weren't there at the beginning. He's like, those other 4 bands.
Exodus was there at the beginning before.
Yep. He's like, he's like, the big 4 are all on the scene before us. So no, we have no business being put into that big 4. So he kind of looks at it as a temporal construct. Legacy, came onto the bass scene just a little bit later than some of the others. So yeah, it makes sense to me that they would have been left out when the term the big 4 was first coined. I kind of get that. If you're looking at, though, over the course of their entire body of work over all these years, it is interesting how those bands in the big 4 really did go through some struggles and some weird times. All 4 of them have had issues. Metallica got 4, let's say 4 good albums, and then drove it off the cliff and into commercial history with the Black Album. Megadeth kind of did the same thing. You get 4 great Megadeth albums, and then they, of course, whatever Metallica did, Megadeth had to do it too, and Countdown to Extinction starts to follow them off, in that same territory. Slayer and Anthrax got more albums out than those 2 before veering off into uncharted waters. Testament is actually, it depends on what you want to think of low. Testament has 5 solid albums up through the Ritual. Like you, Marty, I'm not the biggest fan of the Ritual. I recently picked it back up. I'm kind of revisiting it right now, but it's a step down for me from some of their previous albums. Sorry to folks in the chat who have been hyping the Ritual. That's cool if y'all are into that one. It depends on how low you want to rank low, as terms of did Testament really go out of focus for a couple of albums or not. But even if they did, at worst, they went out of focus for about 2 albums before starting to get it back together. And as we've discussed, at this point, they've got to be the most consistent band at just keeping that kind of classic US thrash metal sound going. The other ones in the conversation, I guess. Exodus. Yes, Exodus were there very early, but they
put out some crap albums.
They did not get anything out until, well into the scene, and they did put out some albums that, just are not that great. I like Exodus. I don't love Exodus. Death Angel, not very familiar with any of their more recent output, Grammys aside. So, I get the sense they're doing fine, but I don't know. I've never put them quite up into that same bracket as a Testament. And then Overkill is the last one, I think, in the conversation. I think after Overkill, you'd have a hard time making a case for anybody at number 9.
Nuclear Assault.
Yeah, maybe.
They put out a couple crappy ones too, but
I think there's a real
their good shit's really good. It's really good.
I don't think there's enough of it to keep them in the conversation.
Yeah.
And kind of like you said with Marty, with Overkill, they have some of the best albums ever, but they also had some albums in between here and there that were not as good. They had some very bad albums. I Hear Black.
Ooh, it's bad. It's almost unlistenable. Ugh.
It's one of the biggest disappointments of a new album I ever bought. And I've revisited, I've checked in on Overkill from time to time, and I've yet to hear an album for the past 20 years that really blew me away, that really made me think, they're back. Everyone, about every other album, folks are like, oh, you should check out this one, it's amazing. And I check it out and just like, amazing is not the word I would use for this. It is bad, but I would not have called it amazing. So I definitely think Testament is at worst in 5th place. Would I jump them ahead of anybody? If you're looking at the whole catalog, I've got no problem jumping them ahead of Anthrax. Anthrax had 20 years of making really horrible albums,
but their last 2 have been exceptional. I really like the last 2.
Back on track, but that's looking at the whole body of work. Testament's a lot more consistent than that. I mean, they're a lot more consistent than Metallica and Megadeth as well. You feel weird trying to take either of those 2 out of the equation, though. They kind of do define thrash metal, whether we like it or not. And then, Slayer's always been a little bit different from the others. Slayer was always, the really, really aggressive one from the set that leans, it really pushed thrash maybe more than the others. So I like Slayer up through Divine Intervention. After that, kind of like you, Marty, I just kind of lost interest. I
stopped caring.
Stuff. Be like, I don't know. This one's okay. That one's really bad. This one's kind of in between.
They never recaptured the fury and greatness of the first 3 albums and the EP. I mean, they never could get there,
Yeah. So I think at this point, yes, I think Testament now is, you can almost make the case and argue they're the flagship for American thrash metal in this day and age. Out of all the bands, Anthrax has just kind of gotten back on their feet over 2 albums. And most of those others, they've maybe gotten back on their feet. Maybe they've done some stuff here and there. Maybe they haven't. So Testament, you can almost make the case they're at least, lead the pack. In terms of just putting out good, solid, consistent stuff these days. So yes, if you wanted a modern, who are like the best, who are the big 4 of modern American thrash, I think you would definitely put Testament way up in that list over some of these other classic bands.
Well, now maybe you could, now that Slayer's no more, you could put the reunited Pantera in the big 4 if you want to do it all according to album sales. Some people consider them the 90s continuation of thrash.
Hi, Jim. How are you doing tonight?
Doing good. Where did Marty go?
Huh? Oh, Marty had something else to do all of a sudden. Something came up. He said the P word.
Oh.
We're not going to talk about Pantera and thrash metal. No. All right. That was your mister. No Pantera in the American.
I was being facetious, very facetious. I'm not a Pantera fan.
Yeah, I know. No. We're not going there at all. But yeah, so I get why they're left out of the big 4 lineup, but it does really depend on how you're using the term and what time frame you want to apply it to. These days, you really still want to call Metallica thrash after all the stuff they've done. That's a weird thing to ponder.
And now we'll see how long it takes for Anthrax to get a new album out. Now that Charlie is in that band that shall not be named band.
Does Anthrax just do they get one more album? How many albums do any of these bands get out at this point? All these guys are up there in years. How long do they want to keep doing it? how long can they keep doing it? Yeah, I don't know. These are rhetorical questions, but yeah.
Shit, look at Dave Mustaine. He's had a rough couple of years, man. But you look at him, God, he's aged a lot. I mean, I've seen some recent interviews, and he looks like an old guy in a wig. This is what he looks like. I mean, he hasn't aged well. Yep. And I'm, not saying anything against his talent or anything, because that new song they put out rips. It's a good song. That if it's any indication of what's coming, it's going to be a ripping album for sure.
Yep. So then next question. We've mentioned that, Testament's a very, very consistent band. Where, just roughly, we don't have to come up with an exact number, where do we rank this album compared to the rest? Is it one of their top 3 albums, top half of their catalog, bottom half of their catalog? Where roughly do you figure this one sits? Just, a ballpark estimate. We haven't sat and all ranked these, so we don't have to come up with an exact number. But Jim, where would you place the Formation of Damnation in the overall Testament catalog?
It's definitely, being a fan since the beginning, of course the older stuff is going to always be my favorite, but I would say that I'd rather listen to Formation of Damnation more than Low or Demonic or anything like that. I mean, I think that this album is more like true to the core Testament. Like you guys have both touched on the point. Like, like for instance, when Chuck does go for like the death growls, they're just like strategically placed, and they don't like distract from that sort of like Testament aura or ethos that they've got going on. You know what I mean? And for that reason, like I for a latter era Testament, I'd go to this one because it sounds like Old Testament, but with a much better drummer. And okay. So yeah, I would stick it way up there for that reason. I haven't really checked out their last couple of records, so I want to make sure I mention that out of all fairness, but
sure.
But for some reason, those mid-period 90s albums, I thought they were good. I thought they were cool, but I never felt like the urge to return to them often. But this record, I would return to often. I could just like play it right after Practice What You Preach and not feel like I'm putting on something different at all. It's just like, I think it's okay for a band to get a much better drummer. Like, sorry, everybody. Judas Priest best album's Painkiller because Scott Travis is on it. yeah, and he really made Priest what I always knew they could be. And I don't think Testament needed that. I don't think Clemente was like that bad of a drummer, compared to like Les Binks and all that stuff. But
he did a good job.
Yeah, he did. He did everything he needed to do. And again, his choices were good. Whenever he used that one fill a lot, like he used it a lot, kind of like a rudimentary kind of a thing, but it always worked. It always sounded badass, and I'd find myself banging my head by myself in front of my stereo in my bedroom as a teenager. So he was doing something right, Mm-hmm. So I feel that everything that they've done on this album is just an extension of who they are, what they are, just making it just that much better, but keeping it comfortably Testament, where it fits in completely with their discography and would make it a solid listen if you're having a Testament night. This would be one to pull out for me, after the old stuff. So.
Okay. Yeah. See, Marty, where roughly do you think Formation of Damnation sits?
Well, I'm gonna agree with Alex, the Metal Neanderthal. I think it sits in my top 5. Like I said, I think it could have followed Legacy. I think New Order, it's a little short of an album, and they got the Aerosmith cover on there. I think they're trying to pad it out because they weren't ready to go in the studio. It's still great. I even read interviews in the past how they struggled because they had to have another album out, and they'd been touring a lot, and they didn't have a lot of material prepared. So they had to kind of pull a lot of shit out of their ass. And that's why it's a bit of a shorter record. I still love it. But if this album was their second, I think it would have been the 1-2 punch with the Legacy. So yeah, for me, it's a top 5 record for sure. I don't care much for the Low Demonic era. I don't hate it, but I don't care that much. Mm-hmm. Like I said, him trying to figure out where the death metal vocals go, it just didn't seem like it fit that great in Testament. But on this album, he's got the right mix. He's got it in the right spot. Predominantly his singing is the way he should be singing, and it sounds fantastic to me. So yeah, top 5, probably top 4. I'd even say top 4.
Okay,
for sure.
Creeping up there. Cool. For me, I'm thinking it's probably just outside the top 5. Trying to do the math in my head quickly. Yeah, most of the classic albums, would be higher. I would have The Gathering would be higher for me. I really like that album. And amongst the newer albums, I've heard them all at this point. Some of them I have not heard a ton. So this is where it gets a little hard to compare. Of the newer albums, Brotherhood of the Snake might just edge this one out. I'm not sure. I'd have to sit and spend a little more time with both of them to see. But this one's going to be knocking on the top 5, but maybe just outside of the top 5. So yeah, it's a very good album in their catalog for sure. All right, let's talk favorite and least favorite songs off of the album. So Jim, what was your best song and your least best song?
Least best song. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It's going to be a tough one for me. I love the title track, the way there's different riffs going on and they string them together and they kind of stay mid-paced for a long time in that middle of that song and just like let Skolnick do his thing, but there's just you don't really know where it's going to go. There's a lot of directions. And what's cool about, Peterson's riffing on this song is he doesn't just play the same riff over and over, next riff over and over. They'll do like just unexpected little stops here and there. Like they'll just break up the riff here and there and, to kind of like give it a little bit more edge. I mean, they're not doing anything like Meshuggah, they're not seeing any polyrhythms here or anything like that, but you're going to see like, they're going to break up, those riffs even within, the measure, before it goes to the next riff, and it keeps it interesting. And so just the way that the song is structured, it stays mid-tempo, it goes fast and it's mid-tempo and it stays mid-tempo for a while. Then it picks up, I really love the arrangement on it, and I can see why they chose that. I really like the song Fear. We mentioned that one earlier. It's just a banger. It's in your face. There's no apologies. Killer drum work from Paul on that one. Another one that I really like is, I have to mention Henchman Ride, because man, Ford shifters. I mean, it's like just pure Chuck Billy amazingness. Really good stuff. And for least favorite though, and I don't hate it, is the last song, the Leave Me Forever. It's kind of like a angry love song kind of a thing, and
Yep.
And so, it kind of stumbles for me a little bit there. And there's weird production on the verses where they have it turned down real low and then they'll turn it up real loud. And I'm not sure what they were going for there. But it's not horrible, but I'm glad they put it at the end, because I can just stop after Fear and say, this is a great, perfect record. But other than that, so Formation, Damnation, Fear, Henchman Ride, and also got to mention the Persecuted Won't Forget. Really cool, speedy riffs there. I love it when Testament goes fast. They don't do it all the time, but when they do that tremolo picking, or it just sounds so great to me. And I don't know what it is. I've always loved it. Even as far back as Curse of the Legions of Death. I mean, just an amazing track. So those are my recommendations.
Okay, nice picks. Marty, what are your favorite and least favorite songs here?
Well, the album starts off just raging. I love For the Glory. I love More Than Meets the Eye. Solid, and Chuck just really leaning into those melodic choruses, man. It sounds so great. I'm a big fan of the Afterlife song. He's singing about his dad dying. It's very personal lyrics. What was the song? I don't remember the name of it. The 9/11 song.
Evil Has Landed.
Evil Has Landed. Man, out of all the 9/11 songs that came out metal, I just remember I remember the Iced Earth video. You got the eagle crying and eagle crying. It's just so fucking cheesy. But this, Evil Has Landed, that song is just, it's pissed off sounding, and the way Chuck is singing those words, it's just very stately and pissed and powerful. And the lyrics on it are really poignant and good and solid. I that's a great song, a good overview on what happened, and a little bit of that American rage mixed in there with it. It might be the song, The Persecuted Won't Forget. Was that the really super aggressive one? See, I should have wrote this down. I'm like, I'll write it down. I got sidetracked.
That was when I mentioned it's like really fast,
really aggressive, teeth grating. I remember like stopping printing and like, like just solid and fierce, and just there's just so many fucking bangers on this record. I don't really hate any of the songs. I will Leave Me Forever. I don't hate the song, but the album is so stacked. In that last song, it's like it's carrying a lot of weight, and I don't think they ended, swinging for the rafters on that one, but it's still a solid album. And again, when it ends, I wanted more. I could have taken another song or two if it was equal the quality that came before it. But yeah, Afterlife for me, Persecuted Won't Forget, and the first 3 songs are all fucking top-notch Testament songs. Great. How about you, Alan?
Yeah, y'all have mentioned some very good ones. Yeah, like Persecuted, because they pick up the pace there. That works really good. If I was going, the More Than Meets the Eye, starts off really, really strong. If I was going to pick just one for a favorite, I think I would actually pick one y'all haven't mentioned, Killing Season. It's just a really solid, great tune, and it's just got the hooks in that one just remind me a lot of that classic mid to late 80s Testament. That's the one that really is just like, oh yeah, this could have been on any one of those 80s Testament albums. It really stood out to me for that reason. For a least favorite, I'm with Jim on this one. I think the last track is the only one that feels maybe it's not that it's a bad track, but maybe just a little subpar. The fact that, yes, it's this angry, lovely, he's supposed to be sad about a breakup or something, but he doesn't sound sad. And the song's, kind of still going at a normal thrash pace. So it's kind of the emotion that's trying to be conveyed doesn't quite work with, the style of music on this one. You need the test. It should have been another one of their the Ritual, the ballad ones, because they can do those songs where they back off a little bit and get that little bit of kind of a wistful, emotive thing when they want to. They did it for years. There was one song on every album that had that vibe. This one feels like they just kind of kept wanting to bang along, but I'm so sad. It's like, you don't sound sad.
Well, I mean, even their ballad, the song called Ballad on Practice, it's cheesy as fuck, but it's still a good song. It's a good song.
Yeah, a lot of folks always liked, the fact that they had that one song on each album that, was kind of the slower, one. And this one,
I'm with you, Alan. It sounds like he's mad sad.
Yeah.
I'm mad sad.
I'm so angry. I'm so sad, but I'm having trouble processing that feeling. So that would be my least favorite. And again, musically, it's fine. It's just that the tone of the song seems wrong for what they're trying to sing about. But whatever. It's a minor complaint about a pretty good album. All right, final question as we get into final thoughts here. I have noticed after now hearing this one and looking at the discography, Testament's now at this point where they've got the last 4 albums, this one, then Dark Roots of the Earth, Brethren of the Snake, and Titans of Creation. It feels like they are they're back in their mold, back in their groove.
Yep.
But I don't think any of those albums are going to get any higher than top 4 in anybody's rankings. I'd be surprised if anybody declared any of those to be like the best Testament album ever. Is Testament doing a great job cranking out really good albums? Or, like we talked about last week with Destruction, are they merely putting out good albums but failing to put out, truly exceptional, top-notch albums? How do we compare what's happening in the Testament camp over the past 15 years to what's been happening, say, in the Destruction camp over the past 15 years? And I didn't preview this question with y'all. I just kind of thought of it as we were going. So apologies, not trying to catch y'all off guard with this.
No. It's a good question. Solid question.
So
a tough one to answer, you know.
Yeah. So we'll throw Jim under the bus first as we have all night. So how do we compare this to, because with our discussion of Destruction, we all kind of felt like, they keep putting out good albums, but maybe they're not good enough to always buy. We've seemed pretty up on Testament tonight, but what's the differentiation between them and Destruction, if there is one?
I do feel that, when you play something like Sentence to Death and then, the new Destruction back to back, it really does sound like two different bands, and I don't think they're.
Well, it is technically.
Well, yeah. I mean, it is. But barring the fact of the lineup, I mean, just even musically, it sounds totally different, Yeah. But with Testament, you put albums back to it's Testament, and so I think that the situation is a little different for them. I think that they sound wise, they're more consistent, and put aside the fact of what band you may like more, I just think that you can't argue that the Testament's not more consistent in sound. So for me, I think that what they're doing is right now in this latter era is more palatable for me because it has a more of a stronger connection with the sound, and let's be honest, maybe that has something to do with the fact that they've always been on larger labels and had access to higher production values. Destruction starting out very tiny little label, but whatever the reason, I feel there's a consistency there with Testament. Now, are these albums great or just good? In my humble opinion, and again, this could be just because of where I came from, I've been there since the beginning. I think this is a very, very good album, but I think their older stuff are great albums. I'll listen to some of this new stuff every once in a while, but it's never going to hold a candle to, New Order or The Legacy for me, because those albums just meant so much to me when they came out. And at the time, 87, 88, those records were just absolutely crushing, and especially for something that was out on, Elektra, Metallica, or Atlantic, Metallica notwithstanding. So for me, more consistency. So in all, for me, just a higher quality overall. But these are very good albums, not like, all-time classics for me. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Marty, what do you think about this?
I a lot of ways agree with Jim. I think Titans of Creation is a great album. They really know who they are. They sound like Testament, and they're writing, the production gives them more of a modern sheen. It's hard to call an album like Titans a super great record because I've got 35 years of listening to The Legacy, for instance, that a lot of personal experiences and growth came up along with this band. So I'm always even this 2008 album, even though I don't own it, I listen to it a lot, and hearing it again, it was just like, God, why haven't I listened to this in so long? It's killer. And it has that old feel, and the things line up on it. I think, like Destruction got more modern. They got a little more typical, which that might be a bad, that might sound like a derogatory mark, but let's face it, you listen to the riffs on Eternal Devastation. They're really, they're note based. They're really technical and flowing and strange and obtuse. There isn't much obtuse of anything on the last few Destruction albums. They're pretty, even when Mike was still in the band, Born to Perish, that album, it's a great record. It still sounds, it's got Mike's flavor on it, but they've simplified their sound. They've kind of sound a little bit more normal. They kind of sound more like the bands that they influenced, if that makes sense. Testament still sounds like Testament. They're still putting out super solid records. Is it as great as their early stuff? I would say it's just as good. It's just, I don't have the years of chewing on it like I have the rest of the stuff. So that makes it a hard question for me to answer, but I would say, yes, they're still putting out great records. They've got too many awesome tools in their fucking shed not to put out good records. You got, at the time, the best rhythm section in the world with Steve DiGiorgio on bass. Steve DeGorgio on bass, and Gene Hoglan on drums. I mean, there's no finer rhythm section in metal, really.
Mhm.
And if you're, the only way they could have fucked it up is writing outside their wheelhouse, which they have not done. And Chuck still sounds great, so they're still putting out supreme quality, I think.
Okay.
What do you think, Alan?
Yeah, it's a hard question, and it may just come down to personal preferences and tastes. I've kept up with Testament a little better than Destruction. That's not a knock against Destruction. Testament albums are very easy to find. And Destruction albums don't always make it onto our record store shelves in the South, and that's not a band I think to check in on. I like this last run of 4 Testament albums quite a bit.
Yep.
That said, none of them are going to replace. None of them are going to bump Souls of Black or Practice What You Preach or some of those other albums down in the rankings. They're just not. There's like Jim said, there's too many years with those albums for them to surpass it. They're very good albums. I guess time's going to tell. How much do I go back? When I go to the thrash shelf and I want to hear something thrashy, how many times am I going to reach for one of these 4 as opposed to one of, say, the first 4? That's always kind of the question I think about. Like for this album in particular, I have not bought a hard copy of this album. There's 2 copies of it laying at the local record store right now. It's $14.99, brand new CD. I can buy it tomorrow if I want to at the local store, which I like to support.
Pick me up one of those 2 and I'll pay back.
I will pick you up one if you want, and you do not owe me a thing for it. Do I want to pick up the other copy for myself is kind of the question. And it's like, it's a good album. How much am I going to revisit this one? And, that's what I kind of have to decide with all these things. When I'm standing there with $15 in one hand and the CD in the other, it's like, is it just going to sit and collect dust over time, even though it's a good album? I would feel kind of the same way about that new Destruction. If they have it in stock, which they haven't picked it up either. Nobody has had it around here. Is it going to get played enough to make it a worthwhile purchase for me? Part of this too is a different issue. I'm a cheap bastard. I will not buy stuff sometimes when I want to. But I think you're both right. Testament, it may be that the musicianship they've got going on. And as we touched on earlier, members have been in and out, kind of back and forth a little bit from album to album. But even when somebody rotates out, they bring in, A-list talent to replace them. So like, oh, we don't have Dave Lombardo? Okay, let's get, Hoglan. That's, there's never, a who the hell is that guy in the lineup? It's always just like, oh crap, they've got these guys, on this album. And then they're not on the next album, but oh, they've got another killer pair. They're just not going to make bad music with these kind of heavy metal heroes in the roster. They're just not.
Yeah. So
it just becomes a matter of how many really good Testament albums do you need on your shelf? They're a great band. They, as we've talked about tonight, I think they have more than any other band stuck to their guns and have as solid a catalog as any American thrash band out there at this point in time. I just don't know how many times they're all going to, and that's part of the problem. When you have this many good albums, you can't play them all the time. There's not enough hours in the day. So sometimes you got to start picking and choosing. And that's where it gets tough on some of these decisions. I think it was Tim mentioned in the comments earlier, he's like, I really like, Testament, but I play them a little bit and then I'm kind of done with them for a while. And I get that. You play it a couple of times. There's other stuff you want to hear. How many spins can anything get? It's something we all have to deal with when you have this much music pile up. So I don't know if I answered the question or if I dodged my own question there. But yeah,
it was kind of a too deep, be determined answer.
it kind of is, I guess. I would say, I guess, compared at least to and again, I don't know the recent Destruction catalog well enough, so it's not a great comparison from my perspective. I do think Testament, has been more consistent over the past 10, 15 years based on the 2 or 3 Destruction albums I know from that streak. So if I was going to fill my shelf with just one of those 2 discographies, it would be the Testament one.
Least successful human cannonball. Rock.
Oh, okay. Hey, here's one for us. Folks were sort of, comparing some what they would rather listen to in the chat earlier, and we were having some fun with it. Okay, least successful human. You got to sit and listen to one of these all the way through. No other distractions in the room. You can't be looking at your phone, working on the computer. You're going to sit there, Clockwork Orange style, and listen to this damn album, start to finish. Least successful human, Cannonball or Reload?
Well, I own Reload. I got it for $5 at Walmart. I think I can listen to this for $5. I don't think I spun it all the way.
Okay.
I saw Destruction during the least successful human Cannonball era at Milwaukee Metal Fest. Were you at that one, Alan?
No, I wasn't.
Oh my God. The singer came out. He was wearing one of those, it looked like a Smashing Pumpkins shirt. It had a star on it and it said star above the star. He came out, they started doing the new shit, and people were launching half-filled beers and garbage at them. Boo, you fucking suck. The guy's like, trying to laugh it off, but he looked like completely traumatized by the whole event. And the material was garbage. It was so bad. How they could, and then they play some older stuff, and the guy didn't sound right, and what a mess. So, I mean, I don't know. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. That'd be a tough choice. I've never heard that album. I saw some of the songs live. It was bad. I mean, Reload. If Reload didn't have Metallica on the top, I think it'd be a different conversation. Because if you listen to that album, there's solid rock songs. It's just not what us coming up with Metallica wanted to hear from Metallica. It just. Some good songs, but it's just not. People are picking.
What are folks picking here in the
Reload? You will suffer through all of Reload, Marty. Then you have my prediction to die. Well, my time on this earth is dwindling by the day, so I don't know if I really want to go reach that. I've got so many cool things that have been sent in lately. I don't want to. Fuck it up.
Oh yeah, no, neither of us. I don't think we want to listen to either of these. Jim, if you're locked in that chair and the eyeballs and the ears are propped open, and you can't do anything about it. Do you have a call here?
I'll pick Chameleon.
I actually never listened to Least Successful, so I don't know what it sounds like, man. So I guess for me, because my destruction era is after Eternal is Devastation, but. So, I mean, I would listen to Least Successful just because I'm not that familiar with it, and it's got to be fucking better than Reload. It's got to be. And maybe I'm wrong. I mean, to Marty's point, I mean, Reload to me, it's like Southern rock when I hear it.
Yeah.
But, when it came out, obviously I hated it, but everybody that did like it, like I hated all those people. I think the bad memories attached to it, the absolute disappointment, the earth-shattering betrayal that I felt when I heard it, way more so than the Black Album. I think I'd rather listen to anything else except for pop punk. That's one thing I can't do is pop punk. But
the thing that's really weird about the Black Album is that you don't have to own that album to have heard 90% of it. Because I bought, I'm like, I've got all the Metallica records other than Lulu, and I went to a record show and they had it in a used CD bin for $5. I'm like, you know what? I'm going home with this record. I'm going to sit and listen to this record. In fact, I put it on in the vehicle on the way home, and Enter Sandman's the lead-off track. That song fucking sucks so much. I've heard it so much. I skipped over that. And once I skipped over that and listened to the rest of the album, I was surprised on how much of it I knew. I mean, there were so many video hits, during the MTV days, the Wolf and Man and shit. There's some okay songs on it. It's just, you could tell they got their, frilly shirt rock producer and they listened to him. And to his credit, he steered them in a very lucrative direction. And that record still sells 9,000 records a week. I still can't believe that statistic. I still can't believe it, man. I just cannot believe that statistic. It blows my fucking mind. 9,000 a week. It's charted. It's been on the charts. It still clocks up there with Dark Side of the Moon and shit as far as longest in the charts. It's like, what the fuck, man?
I can't help but wonder if Lars doesn't have some kind of like human factory in Southeast Asia where he just has children circulating through line every single week, like, you buy a record now, and just
dude, they've got their own.
To keep paying for another download of the same damn thing.
They bought their own vinyl pressing plant in Europe. The Blackened label, they print all their own records, and then they license them to other people, or so. I don't know how it works, but Metallica bought the rights to their music back. They bought their own vinyl pressing plant. So, I mean, as businessmen, they're fucking geniuses. But any problem goes away if you throw enough money at it. And like Jason Newsted, he's playing like acoustic gigs at like weddings and shit now with his band. And he doesn't need to work. He's said as much in fucking interviews that he gets so many royalty residual checks from the Black Album. He doesn't need to work. And it's just like, wow. That's fucking incredible. It's incredible.
Lars is forcing folks on the other side of the planet to buy that album. I don't know how, but he's got a scam going. He's forcing them to buy it every week.
Well, they keep repressing. Hell, this recent repress that happened a couple months ago is like a box set. It's like $1,000 box set with like videos and like 15 records in it. It's like they keep all these collectors. They just can't. We can't say no.
And he's holding the keys to some poor child's freedom, dangling over their heads, like, you buy that album, you get your passport back or your green card, whatever it is.
Right.
That's the only way he's getting those sales. For me, I'll go with the least successful, Human Cannonball. I think I could laugh my way through that album at least. The Reload, I would just sit there and be angry the whole time.
Alex is right. Metallica is like the fucking Eagles of metal these days, and it's true. Yep.
All right. Well, we have had our fun with this one, so I believe it is time to wrap things up. It's been a fun conversation. Thank you to everybody in the chat for hanging out tonight. Even though, we had sort of got things up and running last minute, I think it worked just fine, and everybody's had some good input on this one. Jim, Marty, anything that y'all would like to say here last minute before we all sign off?
Jim has to pick the next album club discussion.
Okay.
Yep. And it's not going to be an easy one, guys. So we all talk about.
You picked Reload, didn't you? You
bastard.
Oh no. But it's a long one, and I know you don't like long records, Alan. We're gonna go with.
Oh, you changed it. You changed it.
Time Does Not Heal.
Okay, I haven't heard that in a long time.
Yep, this was a good and polarizing album from Dark Angel fans. I can go ahead and just, spoiler alert, I love it. but it's definitely a challenging listen. It's a long record, stylistically very different from the albums that came before it, but still, definitely for me, still Dark Angel. So I would like to get you guys' thoughts on that and get your thoughts on the many, many riffs.
If they were to break that down, there's probably 15 albums worth of riffs on that record.
Oh my God, there are, dude. There's so many.
Crazy. Yeah. Well, awesome. That's what it is. He threw a curveball. He told me when he was here a week ago that it was going to be something different, but this will be fun. This will be a fun one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to ask you later what that was because I don't remember.
Devastation, Signs of Life.
Oh shit, I forgot. We'll do that one my next go round.
You have to change it out now. You can know it doesn't have the impact of the surprise now. Okay.
That's true. Yeah.
Good deal. Marty, anything you would like to throw out there before we sign off?
No, programming notes. We don't have someone lined up Friday yet, but I'm thinking about asking Melanie if she's feeling better, if she wants to come on and make up for lost time on Friday. See if she's got a discussion we could chew on, but that remains to be seen. But rest assured, we'll be here Friday no matter what with something going on. So please tune in. And hey, I just want to thank everybody in the chat every week, y'all, you old bastards on here, for actually checking out the records that we're talking about beforehand and being a part of the conversation. It means a lot to us. It helps, you guys contributions to the chat help the show. So thank you very much. And for playing along with us. And we appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Alan, how about you?
Nope. I think all we've got left to say is drink that chicken. Think about it.
Swallow.
Cheers, everybody. We'll see you Friday night. Thanks a lot, Jim. As always, you rule, man. Have a good night.
Later on, guys.
We'll get that sign off right one night.
We'll figure it out.
Sooner or later.